I'm a believer in karma, and the black, I think African American or whatever you want to call yourself in America as a black person, I think we getting our karma every time. I think every single time you roast a person, you end up having like 10 bad people around you, right? If it's unwarranted, if you make fun of somebody laugh or somebody's style or whatever, I think the karma comes back to you. And I think as a collective of things that happen to people, each race gets their karma back in many different ways and variations. But at least in other cultures, even the things that, other races did, they learned to stop and make up for it. But black people don't do it. Black people have been so one-sided on every single thing when it comes to their karma that it hits everyone. It's like a nuclear weapon. It's like a out of control hurricane. It hits everybody. It hits the whole community because you have 1,000 people who make fun of people. You have 1,000,000 people who make fun of somebody. You have 200,000 people who listen to the same music and follow the same people. We always seem to choose the wrong leaders. We always seem to back the wrong people. We always seem to not get with the certain people. We always have kids in unfortunate situations. Every race have their gripes, but they make up for it in many different sections. Black people are the only one who toss out their good and think the bad is going to have good qualities. And with that happens, when you toss out so many good people, and this is on the men's side. The women are chameleons. So this is for the men. When you toss out so many good people, it adds up. Imagine this, right? There's a head count of certain people in the black community that has been tallied up and they have a whole roll sheet or a whole poll of men who tell you what their skills are and how they was treated in the black community. And I bet you it'd be like something like this, right? Where it'd be like about 50,000 good black men who got high IQs who black people kicked out and ostracized. It's even about 500,000 people who were ostracized and kicked out of the black community or not liked by the black community, who are socially awkward or weirdos or whatever they're going to say. The smart guys take their talent somewhere else and improve neighborhoods where they're the only person in that neighborhood, learn other languages. The different people, they bloom, they late bloomers, and they become better. They become fathers. They become husbands. And they become an addition to a family from another race, or they build companies and build things up for themselves, right? Then you got the guys who are physically better than the guys who are out there being athletes, but guess what? They don't have the support. So they look at the people who got the support and they say, no, I'm not going to use my talents for them. I'm not going to use my physical talents for nobody. I'm going to do something else. So that's about like 20,000. So the numbers add up to all the people that they kick out, all the people who be good at STEM, all the people who are smart thinkers and think 10 steps ahead, who whole purpose is just sitting around thinking of a next plan that they have to do, because white people have that. They have old white men sitting at a desk waiting for the next plan that they're gonna implement. So now you have a lot of good men. You got the good men who they're not tall. They're not so funny. They're not so super fun. But when you come down to it, with these people, they said beauty is subjective, but what about fun? Fun, the kind of fun you have is subjective to the person, right? But when you have a race of people who are so lopsided when it comes to the people, you get the karma back. And I'm going to talk about the situations now. This ice cream challenge from a female who licked ice cream at the Walmart, or I think Walmart or Walgreens. Chick comes from dysfunction. One of the men who everybody ostracized, this chick would have never been born. And she would have never put the stain on black people. Now, this chick started a whole challenge with people going around licking ice cream. Putting other people's health in danger because they wanted to follow this mentally ill female. But guess what? No one's going to talk about that. The men you kicked out, the men you ostracized, would have never fathered a child like this. The men you kept there created a child like this. So, this is the karma of black people all the time. They always showing their dysfunction to the people. But it's not just showing the dysfunction. It's not just showing the dysfunction that black people have. It's showing the karma that coming back to them for disrespecting and tossing out a whole mess of good men, a whole mess of men who was needed in the black community to make it 10 times better than it is. This is the consequences of treating your best like crap and ostracizing them. You get this on a world stage. You think this is going to be good on the reputation of black people, and especially black women? No. Let's talk about this cucumber challenge. That's mostly black women doing this. If there were strong black men who would stand up to these females, we would have created a culture of shaming, where if some chick did something out of the ordinary, like they did on here, overall, she'd be shamed. She'd be shamed. Anything, a female cheats on a husband, a good guy, every single city would know that chick is a cheater and she don't deserve a man. That'd be the standard for certain men in a community, if the right men would have been supported. But instead, we got men who allow this to go on. They call themselves select. They call themselves this and this and that. But the fact is, the reason why the women are so disrespectful, because you ain't select, you ain't alpha, you ain't anything but a guy who begging for his next treat. You a dog with your mouth patting for the next pussy treat that you're gonna get. You don't stand up to these women. You don't create another situation. See, the strong men that y'all kicked out, the strong silent type who don't have to yell and scream, they will stop dealing with the women. They will ostracize the women until they get their act together and say, okay, now it's time for you to get attention, and for you to get sex. Strong men do that stuff. They control the narrative. But unlike you weak men who talk about game and all this stuff, y'all went back and forth with a bunch of women playing table tennis. thinking you really playing real tennis. You playing checkers, but you call it chess. It's a joke. And now the result of it, the karma of that, is you got women doing cucumber challenges. You got more and more. You got the weaker men who were raised by women doing the same thing they see women doing so they can get some attention. Even though they might be the guy who got game and swag and all this other stuff, but they want to join in on the fun. They want attention because they've been around. They rely on women so much that they took on some of the women characteristics. Don't you ever notice with these dudes who got game, most of them act just like women? Most of them have some characteristics that a woman have. When you spend so much of your time gaming women and getting in the mind of women, you start coming away with it. Did you know that, if a man goes to, if a good, stable, mentally stable guy, strong build, whatever you want to call it, he goes to another country in another person's situation, he has to adapt to that situation. But that situation might scar him and destroy him. This is what happens to a lot of veterans. They have to do a lot of things that they wasn't used to. And they come back mentally messed up for having to do all these different crazy things that they had to do in order to adapt to the situations that they was in. Right? Just like these men. Instead of just leaving these women alone, putting all these black women on ice and letting them get them correct, you got a lot of blind loyalty to these women. Men who say, well, women don't have the same, white women don't know the same struggle as me. What struggle was that? Because they get everything handed to them. Sex, money, opportunities. What struggle you talking about? So you go into the victim mentality, just like a woman. See what I'm talking about? So these guys been around these women and they rely on these women so much they got themselves distorted and they become like women. They become gossip girls. They become, they want all the attention, so they dress flamboyant all the time. And people might call them homosexual. Oh yeah, man, that guy's like, oh yeah, that dude, he dressed nice, but he got something wrong with him. Because he been around women too much. All his free time around women, he forgot to let his male energy fester and become just relying just on him. If you take these dudes away from these women and they don't have to rely on women, they would be two wholly different dudes. They wouldn't be talking the way they talk. They would have a newfound respect for the guys who said that they don't want to deal with them. But if you keep dealing with them and you keep them being in that environment of game and swag and all this other stuff, you start to become what you chase after, what you feel good from. And it damages you. And a little bit by little bit, you start becoming like a woman. This is what happens when you toss out all the good men. Toss out all the good people who should be doing that, teaching guys like this. You should have never did it. Because if it was good men in that community, we would find them. We would get his picture out there and find them. Beat him up and send him to the police station. And make an example of them. But guess what? We don't got them kind of men out here. They worry about game. Getting women. Talking about other men who don't get women. Or talking about the past. Now, let's talk about the situation that happened in Disney World or whatever, right? funny to me that people seen this situation, and I don't think it was no black people in this situation. But this is what happened when this is females' choices in men right here. Because the girl in the brown, the one right there on the opposite side, she's the boyfriend of the pink. In that video, same video, he fought her and beat her up because he thought that she hit her mom. I think this is the whole family. They all related, I think. Fighting each other. This is what happens when you don't have the good males in the family. Because the fact is, as soon as they start fighting, it'll be a strong dude say, hey, you want to fight? Fight me. But let's not fight here. We gonna cut this vacation short, and we're gonna fight somewhere else. Not in front of these white people, not in front of these kids. Stop dealing with this, or I'm gonna disown you. Put your foot down. I'm gonna disown you. You make us look bad, you out of the family. That's what real strong families do. Because he made himself and the family look all bad. But the fact is, there wasn't a third man in that situation. It was only two effeminate men fighting, who couldn't check themselves and realize their surroundings and realize that in today's age, you have to watch what you do, or it's gonna be on camera and post to social media. Then you got his girlfriend, who with the effeminate guy who put his hands on her. So that's what happens when you kick the dads out the house and you let the women take over. We had every single generation to fix it. Every single time we have all these talks. Oh yeah, man, we gotta do better. The 80s, the 90s, early 2000s. Now this generation. The men could have already came back in the house. Despite the fact that they gave black women so much power. Do you really think that the smart black men and the men that y'all ostracized would have came up with a good plan for these women? And made sure they fell in line? Or they would be cut off? You could disown them and do all that? Like every other race does. If this was another situation if this happened to a family in another race, in another country, the dude with the pink will be gone for what he did. And if he wouldn't be gone, he'd be kicked out the house, on the street, for the way he acted. But in black families, dysfunction is normal. Because you kicked out all the wrong men who will be strong enough to stand up to all of dysfunction. If you had the 200,000 black men, or the 2, 3, 4 million black men who was thinking black men, or strong black men who physically and strong and think 10 steps ahead, this situation would have never happened. Because if you're a smart man, you would know who the troublemakers to bring on a trip. You would know who are troublemakers to not bring on a trip. And the people who know how to act right in public. But when you don't have strong men and people who think, we bring them over to everything. We bring them to everywhere else. And they make black people look bad. Because you don't have the ability, the best judge of character, because you don't have intelligence in the black community anymore. Everything we see in the news and the media and everything that's happening right now, It's because you did what you did. You ostracize certain people. You say they talk too white. They weirdos. They're socially awkward. So we seeing things on in the media that could have been stopped from the home if there was good black men in the community. The guys y'all said was weird, but they have more heart than the thugs, because the thugs let everything go around and they go after weak people. But men with heart, like that man, I forgot his name. His name is Shaw. He stopped a mass shooter and injured his hand. That's a good black man. Guys who are willing to control the whole family and make sure he know who the good ones in the family are and the bad ones in the family are, and who not to invite, who to invite. But when you kicked out the family, when you kicked out all the good men, when you kick out the men who can do something and make good plans and think 10 steps ahead and do all that, you got a dysfunctional imagery. You got women who are always dishonest. You got everybody back talking about the past. You got all this disentanglement in there. While the good black men, most of them are online, like myself, but a lot of them are married to other races of women, living a quiet life, looking at you black men and looking at the black race and shaking their head like, I'm happy I'm away from these fools. Tommy Sotomayor, he pretty much highlights all the stuff that happens. Obsidian, O'Shea, all these people in the black manosphere when it first started about Red Pill. If y'all never kicked out the right men, they wouldn't have nothing to talk about. Just like every other community, you don't see them put their business out in the public. You know why? Because the men that y'all think are weak and don't go to the gym, they control their media. They control not only their media, but they control their neighborhoods. They control the people in the area. They make sure that certain people don't bring out their phones. They make they threaten family members if they act in certain ways with disownment. They keep certain people out of certain areas. If you act the fool, they're not gonna sell nothing to you, so you're gonna be on the street. They have better laws and a better system and a better judge of character than black people, because they're ruled by the right men. Doesn't matter if the guy they're bad or not. They're ruled by the right men because you don't see their dysfunction. You gotta search hard to go see dysfunctions in other countries. They're not on World Star Hip Hop. They're not in all these other brands. A million, probably like at least 20 or 30 million type of videos is out with black people acting a fool. And that's not on the men that was ostracized. That's on the men who women choose, and it's the women who choose them. This is your karma. We would never get out of a good situation. This never will turn around, because this is your karma, and it's going to keep going and going and going, because you keep kicking all the wrong people out and ignoring all the wrong people and making all the wrong people fathers, husbands, boyfriends, lovers. It's on y'all. This is the karma of black people. All this karma is y'all's.